Hello and welcome to the video version of the Happier at Work podcast. I'm your host, Aoife O'Brien, and my guest today is Dr. Rosina Racioppi. We have an amazing conversation about strategic career management. So if you are the kind of person who is spinning a lot of plates, you don't really have a plan for your career, you're a little bit lost, you feel like maybe you've backed yourself into a corner, you're not really sure what your next step is, then definitely check out today's episode. And I'd love to know what you think. Leave a comment below and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Rosina, you are very welcome to the Happier at Work podcast. I'm so pleased to have you as my guest today. Do you want to give listeners a little bit of an introduction to what you do and how you got into doing what you do today?
Oh, well, thank you for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Well, I think of my career in two chapters. The first chapter, I spent leading HR functions, mostly in manufacturing organizations. And during the time that I worked in the chemical business. I met this woman, Jean Ott, who launched this organization, Women Unlimited, that partnered with corporations to help them increase women's advancement into leadership in their organization. Jean and I became, professional colleagues as I identified women to put in the program. I was a mentor to women in the program. And after our youngest daughter was born, I needed to have more harmony in my life. I left my corporate job, started consulting, along the way, still staying in touch with Jean, who eventually reached out to me and asked me to join Women Unlimited. So what I love about the work that we do at Women Unlimited is it's really my heart's work. Because when I was in organizations, I loved helping people find that niche, right? That job, that role, that track that spoke to their capabilities that they enjoyed doing and allowed them to get the momentum in their career. And we do that now on a broader scale within Women Unlimited because we help women gain that insight that they need to manage their career, and find that the areas that not only they're capable, but they enjoy doing, right? And to create that momentum for themselves, professionally and personally.
You're absolutely speaking my language with everything that you've just said there. Similar background. I worked in market research in the CPG, as they call it in the US, consumer
Yeah.
packaged goods, or FMCG, we call it in Ireland, fast moving consumer goods. So anything sold in a supermarket, basically.
Yeah.
Left that almost 20-year career to set up my own business. And one of my areas of focus is supporting women. It's not my sole focus, but it's an area I really care about because I am a woman, should I say. I am a woman and I have experienced those types of issues that only women face in the workplace. I loved how you spoke about managing our careers. So I think it's so important and not something I ever really thought about in a strategic way when I had I had a career for 20 years as an employee. I mean, I still have a career now, but I had a career as an employee for 20 years, never once thought about managing my career strategically. So maybe we can dive into that in a little bit more detail to give, I suppose, a bit of my own perspective. And this is what I see a lot of other people, not just women, but people generally speaking, but it probably impacts on women more, is just leaving your career to chance and hoping that someone will notice the hard work that you're doing,
Yeah.
waiting for an open role or an opportunity to come up in the organization that you're in, rather than thinking bigger picture and like, well, what opportunities are further out there, or creating a role for yourself around the things that you're really good at and that you enjoy. So do you want to talk me through maybe some of the challenges that you see women facing, the women
Yeah.
that you work with?
I think it's that transition, if you will, from academia to our career, where, we're successful in school by getting really good grades. We get the good grades and then we know we're successful. But organizations don't work that way. And
Mm,
I think there's a fallacy that my work will speak for me. Hard work is
yeah.
enough. And we hear, we've been doing this work for 30 years, and we continue to hear today what we heard 30 years ago from
Yeah.
women. I'm not comfortable talking about myself. I want my work to speak for me. And that I think is the biggest lie we tell ourselves, right? Because oftentimes, I don't know about you, but I've been in jobs where and roles where I am functionally capable of doing an excellent job in the role that I'm in. And I really don't like the work that I'm doing.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
because I'm
100% agree.
capable.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah,
and so if I wait for my work to speak for me, then what happens is people see me do this work exceptionally well. They just give me more jobs like that where I'm using those skills, but it's not the work I enjoy doing. And what
mm,
happens to a lot of women is they get promoted, they move along, and they end up getting in this career corner that they don't know how to back out of or get
yeah,
out. And if we don't wrap our voice around our work, then we can't highlight the things that we enjoy. So a lot of the work that we do in our programs with the women that attend is helping them assess their capabilities. Of all the things you can do, what's that subset of skills that when you're doing that work, that's your joy? Like, do
yeah,
you like solving customer problems? Do you like doing analytical work? Whatever that
mm,
is. And then how do you wrap your voice around positioning? Gee, when I was meeting with that customer and we solved that problem, I could see how the ripple effect in the organization, we're able to build this expertise in the company. You need to be able to position your expertise in a way that the influential leaders in your organization understand what you're bringing to the table.
yeah,
What I often say to the women in our programs is your leaders, especially today, are looking at the resources available to solve your organization's problems. If you're not advocating for yourself, if you're not letting them know what you're bringing to the table, they can't leverage you. And if you just wait for your work to speak for you, they're going to leverage you in a way that maybe isn't really what you want.
yeah.
So, we own our career momentum. And this is one way we can make sure that we're getting the momentum that we want.
I forgot to mention, I take notes as I go through, so there may be
That's
some
okay.
gaps. I'm using my trusty Remarkable to take notes. But no, that was fantastic. We own our career momentum. Absolutely love that as a quote. I want to come back to a point that you made earlier, and this is the idea that I'm not comfortable speaking for myself. And I see this a lot.
Yeah.
As a business owner, I've had to learn to get over myself and do that, because if I don't speak about the work that I do, then I don't get business and I don't have a business. So I really had to learn how to do that, as uncomfortable as it can be at times. In Ireland, we have this thing called notions. In Australia, I know they have this thing called the tall poppy syndrome. So when you're advocating for yourself, or when you seem to be boastful or promoting yourself in some way, other people want to knock you down to size. They want to, take you down a peg or two. Is that the biggest fear, or is there something else that you're seeing that's going on, that women, as women, we're so afraid to speak up for ourselves?
I think there's a whole host of reasons, and for what we hear from a lot of the women in our program, some of the reasons are there's a discomfort. Like if I say it, maybe people are going to feel like, oh no, she's really not that good, right? That bit of that imposter syndrome.
Judgment.
Yeah, it's that self-judgment,
Yeah,
right? And it's also sometimes we are hypercritical of our capabilities. Like we need to be 100% at everything, A plus 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 in every avenue, when that's an impossible standard for anyone to live up to. Um, Instead, if we view our skills on a continuum, right? If we view our capabilities on, in the role that I have today and the role that I aspire to tomorrow, how would my perspective, my skill set allow me to create impact for my company. And that's really the framework that helps us get over, needing to check every box, right? Um, and we can then get an understanding of what's the story that I want to tell about my capabilities so that others who are influential can see that I have a capability, can help put me in roles or experiences that expand my understanding of the business and expand my ability to create greater impact in the organization.
Brilliant. I love that. And yeah, the discomfort, and we're so critical of our own capabilities. Like, I have to tick all the boxes. I have to have all of the capabilities. Like, I can't be a beginner. I have to have all the answers already, or I have to be an expert already in whatever it is that I'm doing. I loved how you phrased it as creating impact for the company, because that puts the focus less on you and our own self doubts and more on what impact can I have? Who am I serving here? Who is the end receiver? Who is the end customer of what it is that I'm here to do? Something else I'd love to chat to you about is this idea of knowing what you actually want. And as my career progresses, it's becoming more apparent that most people sort of just landed into the career that they have, and they haven't designed it strategically, and they're not really sure what to do next because they haven't ever given it that much thought, and they're not sure what they want. Is that something that you see a lot of as well?
Oh, I see that all the time, and I think even more now when I think about what my children and their peers have gone to school with, so many opportunities to have these rich experiences in college that often are in preparation for careers in the corporate world. My undergraduate degree is in criminal justice because at the time that I went to college, there were these roles in prosecutors' offices in the states that helped people who were victims of crime overcome the situation that they were um, victimized and then navigate the system. But when I graduated college, there was a recession and all those jobs went away. So my father said to me, "You have a degree. You need to figure out what you're going to do."
Hmm.
And I had worked in the summers while I was in school at in HR for a large Fortune 50 corporation. And so I just leveraged that experience to and build a career in HR. I was not an HR person by degree. That wasn't
Hmm.
what I studied in school. But I found that it was my passion because I felt that when I worked in HR, I could kind of see what was going on in the organization. You weren't doing the work, but you were a part of the work because you were helping getting the people ready to do the work, talking about the organizational design, talking about the systems that support the individuals. And I'm just fascinated by how humans can be prepared to deliver what they need to deliver to help an organization grow and thrive.
Hmm.
I'm intrigued by that to this day. And so I think sometimes you just need to be curious. Like I was very curious about, well, how would this work? How could I, if I was in this role, be effective? And there are so many people out there that when you pick up the phone and ask them and say, I'm just new to this company. I'm starting a training department. What are some things I need to be thinking about? And people will tell you,
Hmm.
and they'll offer you help, and they'll give you some direction that then helps you create, oh, gee, I like this. Then I want to do more of this, or I'll try something like policy work. Oh, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. So it's a bit of a test and learn. What are the things that when you're doing that work, you're really excited? Then how can I find more of those opportunities?
Hmm.
I don't think that there's a specific roadmap. And my advice, especially early in your career, if you're not certain, try on different types of roles. See which ones speak to you, and then you'll know what path to follow.
Do you think that that's maybe one of the downfalls, that people are so worried that they don't have it all figured out?
Yeah,
They think they need to have everything mapped out. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's your 10-year career plan? All of these things, and each of the steps mapped out. And I'm going to go here next. Whereas actually, it can be really beneficial to try stuff and see what you enjoy doing and follow that road. And like you say, be curious about what that
right.
next step might be and how can I add more value? How can I be more effective in this role? I wanted to tie this into the idea of knowing what we're good at, because again, I think this is another thing where women especially fall down. So it's not just speaking about the value we're adding in an organization, but it's actually knowing that to begin with. And
Right.
oftentimes we're blind to our own strengths. Do you want to talk to me a little bit more about that?
Well, one of the things that I think is so important for anyone, but I think even more so for women, is reaching out and understanding the art of getting valuable feedback to
Mm,
really narrow your perception, right? So we all have a perception of, our capabilities. But I don't know if my perception is accurate. Does that equal what my leaders are thinking about my
yeah,
capabilities? And so I believe that you don't need to leave it to guesswork, but you can refine and narrow that perception gap by asking some questions. So when you complete a project or a presentation, you can easily go up to some of the people that you presented that information to or gave that project to and ask two simple questions. The first question is to ask, I'd love your thoughts on, in this work that I just completed, what were the aspects of it that you felt were right spot on to what we were looking to achieve? Would love like your thoughts on what was really effective in that work. And that gives you an understanding of, gee, in this work that I did, these are the skills, these are the things that were valued.
yeah.
And that's great because that helps you then say, all right, that's what I thought. Or gee, I wasn't thinking that that was a strength of mine, but nice to hear that people are seeing that. And then this is the great question to ask, which is, if I were to do a similar project or presentation again, what could I do differently to really make it even better?
Yeah.
Right? So the work is done. You don't have to redo it, but this gives you additional information, additional insight that next time you're approaching a similar type of work, you can incorporate it. So, sometimes I think when people ask for feedback, they're like, well, can you give me some feedback? Which is a great question, but
Mm,
it's not directed, right?
yeah.
The more specific you can get, and especially if you had an area that you're thinking, well, I'd really like to know how I landed this point.
Mm,
How did that resonate with you? So be as specific as you can so that you can make sure that you have alignment between how you're thinking about yourself and how others are seeing your capabilities.
yeah. I love that. It's because it's that perception. And I was going to say controlling that perception. That might be too strong of a word, but like at least managing the perception that other people have of you so that you know how you're being perceived and how you're actually showing up and whether that aligns with how you thought you were showing up in the first place as well. So I love that. And like, what could I do differently next time? It's so easy. One thing I will say is that so many people are reluctant to ask for feedback. I think it's another one of these things that sends a shiver down people's spine when they hear the word, or if someone says, "Can I grab you for a minute? I have some feedback." Like, are there any worse words that you can say to someone? And you kind of have to qualify it by saying, no, don't worry, it's all good or it's all positive,
Yeah.
or, you're not in for a thrashing, basically. So I love that approach. And I think, again, a reminder to anyone listening is to proactively ask for that feedback. If that feedback is not provided for you, then you do have the opportunity to proactively ask for that, and don't be afraid to ask for it, because it sounds very kind of trite, but they do say that feedback is a gift. It's the intention with which you seek feedback and the intention with which someone gives you feedback, and they should be giving you feedback with a view to helping you in your career to grow in some way, to uncover a blind spot that you weren't aware of. and to help you to progress in whatever it is that you're looking to achieve.
Well, and what we see happening too for women, and there's a lot of research that points to this, is that women tend to get more transactional feedback. You did good work on that. This worked out really well. Where our male counterparts tend to get more aspirational feedback that
Mm,
sets them up for future roles. I mean, I believe, and we believe in the work that we do at Women Unlimited, that that may be true, but we all have the power to change that paradigm, right? By saying things like, I'm interested in pursuing the VP of marketing role. I've done this work and that work, whatever my experience has been. What are the things I should be thinking about so that when those opportunities come up, I'm viewed as a potential candidate for that type of role? Those are questions that we should be asking. We shouldn't be guessing. We shouldn't be looking at others and coming to our own conclusion.
mm,
We need to do the research. If that's
yeah,
something that we're pursuing, then we need to ask others for some feedback and some thoughts on that.
yeah,
Would you see me as someone that could be a potential candidate? What roles would I need to take between now and then
yeah.
in order to better prepare me for that?
Mm.
So those are all questions to manage my career effectively. I need to know those things.
Yeah, and I think that's so valuable to just ask those questions. So first of all, I suppose find out who is making the decision, who is in that
Right.
role already, what was their trajectory, what did they do. When you ask the question, again, I'm thinking, look at the response that you're getting. And if you're watching
Right.
this on YouTube, you'll see our faces, but look at the response that you're getting about what you ask. And if it's a total shock, if it came out of left field, then there's something going on in how you're managing that perception that other people have of you, that you haven't maybe openly spoken about these aspirations that you have. But I think that gives the opportunity to have some very honest conversations about where the gaps are. So this is what I aspire to be. And again, something that I'm thinking of, do you know what the role entails? And does that
Mhm.
play to your strengths and your desires for what you want in your career? And bringing all of those factors into play as well, really having a true understanding of what the day to day intricacies of the role are, rather than just the title or the salary or the team or whatever it might be. Um, but yeah, just asking those questions. So I'm interested in pursuing this role. What are the things that I need to do in order to get there? But
Yeah.
asking the right people, the right questions, I think can really, really help. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important, right? We own our careers. And so if there's something that we're interested in, then we need to understand, what's the pathway to achieve that. And don't just use one source of input, right? So we may get one person, oh, we like that answer, so we're going to run with
And that's
that.
something I know how to do already.
Yeah, so I'm
And
good with that.
yeah, that's a
I would
really
say,
good. Sorry, go on.
y-
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think you need to find, people that are from different pockets of the organization, different parts, people that see you on a regular basis, people that see you once in a while, and get that feedback to make sure that you have the broadest view and the
Mm,
broadest source of input,
yeah.
so that you can feel more confident in what your final assessment might be.
Yeah. And if I think back to my own career and specifically, what does it take to get to that? I was I say, I was looking to get to that next level within the team that I was in. I had a new manager, so I felt like I had to prove myself all over again. He didn't seem to believe that much in me, but we had regular catch ups, and he said, let's catch up every couple of weeks and we'll review how you're getting on. But thinking, reflecting back and thinking, it wasn't just his opinion that mattered. And I should have got input from several different people about how I was performing, not only to aim or to aid my discussion with him so that I could go in a little bit more on the front foot and say, listen, this is what other people are saying about my work, because he wasn't as close as he needed to be. And at the end of the agreed 3 months, he said, I don't he wasn't clear on why I wasn't going to be promoted, and in order to give me
Yeah.
some more constructive feedback, he needed to consult the job description, which is the biggest load of you know
Baloney.
what that I've ever heard. So, but it was a really important lesson for me, I think. You know, I'll take that as a valuable lesson that I've heard. Now, Rosina, I know that you talk as well about the systemic issues, or not just addressing. So, a lot of the things that we've talked about are what women can do specifically for themselves. Let's have a talk about, like, we operate in a system here.
Right.
We're in an environment. We're in an organization. What can we do at that level?
So I think it's really important in the work that we do, while the women attend the programs, we also work with their managers
Yeah.
because, we know that the managers are the vital link to women, to all employees, really navigating and growing and honing their capabilities as they're creating impact for the organization and their customers. And for managers, not all managers have um, the capabilities, and I'm going to say the time. I think that in this post-COVID work environment that we're a part of, it seems to me that we are more time compressed than we ever were, even prior to COVID. And so while the managers focused on organizing work and getting it done, oftentimes the coaching and developing the team, you know, goes by the wayside. The
Yeah.
time that they allow for that. Um, and so the work that we organizations can do to help managers not only understand the value of them providing those critical feedback loops with their employees. And I don't mean feedback by here's what you need to do better or differently. Those feedback loops are, how is this working? What can we do differently? How can we continue to grow your capabilities? That's really what a feedback loop looks like. So I think for organizations to focus on how do we help managers be better at that is critical. And then helping managers understand the greater the distance or the difference between you and the people that you're managing in gender and race creates a broader gap, right? That you're
Mm,
you're looking to influence across. You're looking to
mm,
communicate across. And I will have a lot of women come up to me, women of color say to me, my manager doesn't give me any feedback. I'm like, well, describe your manager. Well, he's a man, and all right. Well, they're afraid they're going to say the wrong thing, so they opt to say nothing, right?
mm.
In this world that we're a part of, there's a fear that I may say the wrong thing, so I am just not going to say anything.
Yeah,
So, but
everyone's afraid to
yeah,
say, what if I, you know, what if I say the wrong thing and it's taken up the wrong way and it's perceived as being misogynistic or sexist or whatever it might be?
right. So as an individual, I'm going to die on the vine if I don't get feedback. So I'm going to help my manager. I'm going to help my manager
Yeah.
by not just talking about the work that I'm doing, but by asking them questions about how I'm doing the work, what opportunities there might be. So while my manager may not be comfortable today in giving me feedback, I can help them give me the feedback that I need to continue to grow
Mm.
in my career.
Yeah.
And so it's not just the company's responsibility. It's not just the manager's responsibility, and it's not just the individual's responsibility. It's a shared responsibility. We
Mm.
all have to understand our role in it, and
Yeah.
we can help each other rise to the occasion
Mm.
if we all understand our role in it.
Yeah, I think it's such an important point. First of all, this idea of the lack of time and compressed time, and as if we didn't have not enough time before, but now after COVID, suddenly it seems a lot worse. And I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe we can explore that. But I suppose the other point is the really clear expectations. This is something I talk about a lot, is setting really clear expectations around time and quality. And that allows you to hold people accountable for when they are meeting those expectations or when they're not meeting those expectations. But you have to set those really clear. This is my role. This is your role. and this is what I need you to do. This is around how long I think it should take. And here's an example of the level of quality, or this is for something internal. So it's okay if there's typos, like don't go an extra hour checking for mistakes or whatever. Or this is going to a customer and it needs to be 99% there,
Right, right, right.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any thoughts on this compression of time then? Like where do you think this is coming from? Is this some pressure we're putting on ourselves? Is this organizations are trying to be thrifty by having fewer people doing a larger amount of work? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think there's a whole host of reasons. I
Mm,
think what I'm seeing today is um, organizations recalibrating post-COVID. So
yeah.
we got through it, and we may have um, hired more people over during COVID. We responded to COVID to get through COVID. And now we're post-COVID, and now we're looking at the organization saying, this isn't the structure that's going to help us get to 2025,
Mm,
2026 effectively. So
yeah.
we need to reconfigure all the deck chairs and reorganize. And um,
Hopefully not reconfigure the deck chairs on the Titanic.
no, hopefully not. Um, but I think what happens is we look at the org, we look at the number of people, we start trimming, but we don't look at the work. Like there's every
Mm,
organization, and I was having this conversation with someone in our organization the other day, saying we look at the structure, but we often don't look at the work that we do. And like any company, large or small, we have habits about the work, and there's things that we do, we do it in a certain way, and no one's looking at the relevancy.
mm,
So, is this really helping us achieve our goals? Does this still need to be done? Um, if so, great. Can we do it more efficiently or differently? If no, then let's get it off our plate. And I think that's the hard part. What I see happening, and I see it through the lens of the women in our program, is that their plates are overflowing with work.
yeah.
And we know that you can't do everything at once, but we're not looking at what are the key priorities of the business this year, this
Yeah.
quarter? How does this work fit into those objectives? I'll do that work that I know has a clear delineation to the goals. Um, but if you're not getting that input from your
Mm,
leadership,
yeah.
you think that all work is equally weighted,
Yeah.
and it's not.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And as we're having this conversation, I had a conversation earlier on a what will become a previous podcast episode. So for anyone who's listening in real time, it's an episode that came out last week. But this is one of the things that we talked about is the nature of overflowing plates. People are so busy, but they're so busy being busy that they don't take that step back. They don't take that time to consider what are they being busy on, what are the
Right.
priorities of the business, and how can I do more of that work that moves the dial for. And going back to our earlier point and kind of coming full circle on this, that gives you the opportunity to speak more about the work that you do and how it relates to the team objectives, the department objectives, the company overall objectives, and your contribution that you're making to it. Not
Right.
only does that allow you to share that with your manager, but again, from research, it shows if we can make a direct link between what we do on a day-to-day basis and the impact that we're having, it gives us a great sense of achievement and happiness at work. So it's so important. Rosina, was there anything else that we haven't covered? We've covered quite a lot of ground today. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you want to share?
I think the last thing that I would say is I think it's critical for people, women in particular, to understand the power of relationships that they form to help them navigate, grow their careers, and create impact. Um, so who are the people in their world, if you will, that are their developmental relationships, the mentors, if you will, that can be their resource to help get the input that they need as they're trying to grow their careers and have to recalibrate their skill sets. Mentors are a vital force um, for your personal growth because they can really tell you what you need to hear. They can give you the insight and also the support, right? That courage to step outside your comfort zone as you're looking to grow your capabilities. I also think it's important to have a strong network. And I know that some people are listening to this and you're rolling your eyes and you're thinking, I don't have time. I'm busy working. But back to our point earlier, if you don't have a network that keeps you informed of the key aspects of the business that are critical, then you're going to fall victim to doing work and have it not be valuable, right? You need to understand what are the key drivers that are going on, not only in your function, but across your organization. So, how broad is your network? To make certain that you understand what's going on in the business and that you are focused on the right things at the right time in the right way for the business. And then you need a network that helps you see around the corners, right? Who are those individuals that help you better understand the industry you're a part of, or outside your company, right? Sometimes we get siloed because we don't have time,
Mm,
but we do need to take a step back and understand the broader picture of the organization we're a part of, the industry we're a part of, so we can bring it back to say, of everything that I'm working on, these are the things, these three things are the most impactful. I'm going to
mm,
put my energy here. These other areas, they'll percolate and they'll become more important over time, but they don't need my time and attention. And
yeah.
I think, well, often I hear, well, I don't have time to network. Well, at a certain point, you don't have time not to,
Yes.
because if you're not spending time with others, then you're not informed.
Yeah.
And lack of information makes us just work, focus on the work, and
Yeah.
not think more strategically about
Yeah.
what we're working on.
Yeah, such a good point. And I think the networking piece, like beyond anything else, then you hear about potential opportunities industry wide if you've built that network
Absolutely.
outside of your own organization as well. And I think Rosina, you've made so many valid points about you can't afford not to network. At some stage in your career, you're going to become stagnant if you don't have those relationships with
Right.
people. So some things, tying all of this together really is when people feel overloaded, when they feel like they're spinning a lot of plates or have too much on their plate, whatever language you want to use, it's about allowing yourself that time to really critically analyze what are you doing. So you have so much on already, but I promise you, if you spend an hour looking at what you have on, relating it back to, okay, what are we trying to achieve as a team, department, organization? Okay, who are the people that I need to connect with? And cutting out the rest, focusing on, like you said, those three priorities, cutting out the rest, building in time in your week to do that focused work that is related to the key priority that you have and build those relationships, then that's when we can start to see a bit of momentum happening, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Brilliant. I've
Yeah.
so enjoyed this conversation, and I think it's so honest and it's so refreshing, and it's so important that we have these kinds of conversations.
Yes.
What does being happier at work mean to you?
Well, I think for me and a lot of the work that we do, I feel that we help people find their career joy.
Yeah.
When you are in a role that you are using those capabilities that, they are your strengths, right? And you're doing work that you're excited about, that yields happiness at work.
Mm, brilliant. Love that. Imagine feeling excited
I
going
know.
into work every day.
I know.
Imagine enjoying work so much that you feel excited about it. It is possible. It is possible. The other thing I wanted to ask. So I'm sure there are people who will want to find out more about your work, find out what you do, and reach out to connect with you. What's the best way that people can do that?
Just visit our website, which is women-unlimited.com, and you can find out the work that we do. And, if you want to get in touch with me, just pop a note and in the contact, and I'm happy to connect with you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, for sharing your wisdom and your insights today. I really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Wonderful conversation. Lovely meeting you today.